Follow a similar format to what we did at Res, so I'll try and cover off on the stuff that I think people want to know about, and then we'll do a Q&A. So during the presentation, if you think of some burning questions that you want to ask, feel free to ask them when the Q&A comes up. So, introductions. So for those who don't know, I'll obviously cover this pretty quickly. DayZ is open world survival horror mod for Arma 2. Since April 2012, we've logged 1.3 million unique players. Really, that represents a pretty awesome achievement for the team that kind of made DayZ possible. So I obviously worked really hard on the mod itself, but in order to achieve that number, there's guys, a lot of people will know, like Ander and Viper and Matt Lightfoot, all the forum mods, and all the server providers and hosters. Those are the people who've really made that possible. And it's pretty amazing when you think about it, that many people to play a mod in less than 6 months. And I really do think that a lot of that is really down to the community that have taken up the DayZ concepts, and you see that's kind of gestated now and has come out in these private hives. So, and also there is our concurrent peak, which is about 82,000 players. It's a bit hard to figure out that number because of we don't really track the online concurrence, but that's our best guess. So obviously dropped down quite a lot now with, with a lot of people have found that the mod has reached a point where, there's no real end game content. It was only really designed to have basically a few hours gameplay. So I think a lot of people are taking a pause at the moment, trying things like the private hives, and obviously waiting to see what happens with Standalone, which is why we're all here now. So, yep, me, Dean Wall, and I work at Being Interactive. And there's a really nice picture there too of the crossbow, for those who didn't see it. This is by one of the artists who'd actually been helping out for free on DayZ for some time, making some models. And that is the new in-game model that's going to be in it. It's really cool crossbow. The new crossbow is one of my favourite weapons. So, not necessarily super effective, but it's really fun. Perhaps surpassed if we get a chainsaw. I love chainsaws. So the now. So this is kind of following sort of Scrum. This is a mixture of what we've been working on and what we're doing at the moment. So the way I describe what DayZ Standalone is going to be, and for easier terms, when I'm talking about DayZ now, because someone on Reddit brought up the good point, what are we going to call DayZ Standalone? I'll refer to DayZ Mod as DayZ Mod, and DayZ Standalone will just be DayZ. So DayZ is going to be a combination of BI's experience across all its products. And I think that's one thing that's really exciting about the studio, and that was why I went with them, is because there is just this massive experience with Arma 3, with take on helicopters, with all the Arma 2 products. So we're going to draw on all those assets. And that's what I'm doing at the moment. So over the last few weeks, I've been going through saying these models look cool, the take on helicopters, helicopter dynamics. If anybody wants to find the frustration of trying to start up your helicopter, go try out take on helicopters, because it's really a lot of work to figure it out, and it's pretty awesome. Fly around Seattle. So we're taking all that and we're making this standalone out of it. We've really looked at the distribution pipeline, and that's what's been set up and running now. The aim being that when, on the development team, when we want to release a build, we push a button, that goes through to our digital distribution channel, and you guys receive it. We think that that will really make it a lot easier for us to push development forward. We don't have to worry about when the releases are made. We can push them out much easier. So that's done, and the priorities that we've got, the big one is securing against the ease of hacking. I really go on about it a lot, and everyone loves me talking about hacking because of my New Zealand accent, because I say hacking and exploiting. So that's, I can't stress enough. We know that that's really important, and we know this because every second post on the forums is about it. And my Facebook is like vandalized with hacking messages. So that's really awesome. So my mum knows there's a problem with hacking and Standalone. I won't get any Christmas presents unless I fix it. So yeah, we know about that one. And the other thing is fixing bugs. You know, the exploiting, and that has been quite a challenge for us because we really have to re-engineer how armor works. And I'll cover these off individually in the next few slides. The other really big one is performance. And not a lot of people mention this, but we think it's really important because with the Standalone, we want to deliver a really polished experience. This is one that we're taking an approach not just from code, but also our art assets, and I'll cover off on that later. But this is really sort of what's been leading up to this point. So discussing about hacking. So with DayZ, one of the curious things, and I don't think it's really been covered, is that for us, piracy didn't exist. So we know every one of those 1.3 million players had at least partially a legitimate copy of Arma 2. That's pretty amazing when you think about it. And also there was, you know, we did that without some kind of ridiculous DRM that really irritates and annoys you, because the reason there was no piracy was because you needed a unique ID. So we're kind of providing value there, and I think that's a really good anti-piracy mechanism that I like. Like if it's bundled with value, then that's okay. It does put an onus on us to make sure the product is reasonably priced, though. I just think that's a really interesting point. What that allowed us to do was focus our efforts on the hacking and the exploits. Because we don't have our business people sitting around going, well, you know, yeah, we've got hacking and exploits, but we need to deal with piracy. We don't have that issue. So the approach we've taken is on 3 pillars. The first one is to protect the data. I guess I shouldn't get too technical about it. One of the big reasons that we have a problem at the moment is that people can inject scripts. Arma is a very trusting engine because of what it was designed to do. We've gone through our lead programmer, Andres Spaniel. He's like a genius. Those who know the Arma franchise will know this guy is a legend. A lot of people criticize the engine, but I really think that if you look at what that engine does and you look under the hood, and I have, there is some real magic there. And what we want to do with the Standalone is bring that magic out. And I like to think that the DayZ mod has given a glimpse of what would be possible if we just tidy up the edges around the design. So that's the first part. Lock the data down, and that's done. The second part is that we're going to log everything, and this is something we've been experimenting with the Standalone. And we're going to talk with our server hosters and how we're hosting the central hive and set up a method of auditing all that, so that even if we don't catch the hacking in the first instance, we'll be able to catch it when we go through the audit trail that it leaves behind. Then finally, we utilize the resources available to us, such as database bans, utilizing things like VAC on Steam, and things like that to, I guess, police the restrictions. You know, I want to be very clear at this point that hacking is the issue for this project. We know it's an issue. You know, we play it too. I get just as many frustrated people in the studio come up to me and say, what the hell's going on? Where are dogs? Why isn't hacking fixed? As I do from regular, you know, just people in the forums. One awesome thing about the project is that in traveling around, I've been able to talk to like really supportive people from like awesome places like Valve, Notch from Minecraft, CCP, and they have all given heaps of advice, and we're going to, you know, get them early builds and get their feedback. So we're really blessed, really, to have this just awesome input from just all other people. I was talking to Philippe from KSP, and he just had some really awesome feedback, and I can't rave about that game any more than I already have. And so I'm just really feeling that that's been really helpful for our development, and I think that that's going to help us deal with particularly this hacking issue. I'm sure I'd better get some good questions on this in the Q&A. So optimization. I think optimization is going to help us with many problems. So to give an example of one area that we're focusing our optimization on is the zombies themselves. At the moment, they're using Arma 2's player models, which are designed to do very complex things. They have very complex materials, very complex textures. One of our really awesome artist gurus has been working on Arma 3 Vespa. I think yesterday on Skype, he was doing a test for me, and we discovered a way that will dramatically decrease the FPS usage for zombies. So that's a really key and tangible thing that we can do to tidy things up. So there it goes there. Heavily optimized our zombie models, world-based optimization, and code and design optimizations as well. So our goal here is to make it run better, make it look better, and hopefully make it work better as a result of that. A lot of people have been critical of us not jumping on board with Arma 3, but the way the BI engines, the BI products work is really we can take on helicopters and we can draw in this inspiration ideas. We've got this awesome team. Like, I hope we can do like a little webisode and actually introduce people to the team, like Andra, Jurka, and Bibble. I probably pronounce their names completely wrong because my Czech's not awesome. But these guys, I can't rave about them enough. We hope to get some content on this on the Tumblr as soon as we can. I'm really pretty excited about what we're going to be able to put out there. So the future, and I guess this is what everybody wants to know about. Our real push is towards authenticity. I've talked about this on the forums, and I'm going to give a few tangible little stuff that I haven't given in a slide shortly. So those are the three pillars that I'm really focusing on. Authenticity, the tension involved with the player, and the freedom. We've got some radical ideas planned. I have to be honest, I don't know how they're going to work out, and that's the idea of this alpha process. We stabilize the standalone, we put some radical ideas in, and we find out how it works. So how are we going to do this? We're going to focus on medical and survival. We're going to introduce this new antagonist, this sort of silent, passive antagonist. We're going to redevelop the zombies. They're another real key focus. Not just graphically, but within the engine. So at the moment, the zombies are based on soldier AI. So they try and outflank you, and they run in zigzags. And the animations are designed to do something different from what we're trying to do with. So that's why we're completely revamping that. And then there's a big focus on equipment and inventory. Everybody knows the reason for that, because in DayZ, your leveling is everything. Like your XP bar is your inventory screen. So I've mentioned before, scrapping that inventory screen completely. We've even been looking at entirely scrapping the module that we use to even provide UI. So those I guess are, to give people takeaways, those are the three that we're really looking at. So what I'm talking about in terms of this medical and survival aspect is we really want to introduce this idea of the survivor versus the wild. At the moment, a lot of DayZ hipsters will realize that it's really easy to survive. Once you've figured out the quirks and you can kind of run through the buildings and get away, it's really easy to survive. We want to take that away completely. I like to think of your player's body and the environment as the real antagonist in DayZ. So there's been a really good thread on the forums, which one guy went through, compiled a whole bunch of ideas, did a really good analysis. So I read through that, and that really struck a chord with me. Those were the things that I wanted to do on the original version. And they're things we can do with the standalone that don't require us to reinvent the wheel too much. And that's why these are a real key part of what we want to do. So things I can confirm, and I am being suitably vague about, I think I mentioned this later on as well, about things, because when I release the standalone, I want to be able to say, here are these cool new mechanics I've designed, and not find that somebody else has put them in somewhere else. So I accept that I'm trying to find a suitable level of vagueness. If people think I'm being too vague, they can feel free to ask questions in the Q&A. But new fracture types. So one example is breaking your ribs, combined with the more complex damage model, depending on where you're taking damage. I mentioned about the inventory system before, so we've been pushing towards making, and I just realised I was just about to get super technical there, but at the moment our references to weapons is very simple, because armour doesn't need to track a lot of things with the weapons. We want to turn them into actual objects so that the weapon has durability, the weapon can jam, all those kinds of things. You know, your night vision goggles has batteries. If you get hit in the head, if a player's shot in the head, then their night vision goggles will be very badly damaged. And when you go to pick them up, you'll see, oh well, they're really badly damaged. And as I mentioned on the forums the other day, I think these aspects alone will radically change the DayZ experience. And I prefer this approach than penalising the free-for-all PvP. I think that if we build these kinds of things around the experience, that it will round out that PvP experience. Now, I don't know whether I'm right, but I think that this is a much better approach to take rather than having PvE servers and all that kinds of stuff. Because the real core experience is the tension that DayZ provided, and that's provided by the other players. It's a bit of an experiment. So I mentioned there malaria, cholera, dysentery, and this third one is one that maybe you'll cop a little flack for, and we'll have to see how it goes, which is no flashy UI, watching for cues. So an example being, I think Stefan, the other day in our motion capture studio, was filming vomiting animations, which is probably one of the more unique motion captures that they've done. So, you know, having to figure out how sickness is affecting your character, and then we're hoping that will create these really unique situations in your group. One of your group members sick, what does he do? There is an issue with with lack of UI that was brought up by a user on Reddit who said that, you know, deaf players, obviously that creates an accessibility problem. The proposed solution that we have at the moment, it's not been coded, so I can't confirm it, but we really want to do it, is that for deaf or hearing impaired players, or those who don't have speakers, that there will be an option, sort of a hearing impaired option, that will disable all sound and replace them with some kind of UI. So we want to kind of avoid exploits, but support that as well. So I don't want those who are hearing impaired to think that we're leaving them behind there. So we'll just have to see how that goes. So this is the end state that I want to see, and someone posted on the forums about having players pooing, and we all had a good laugh. And then I sat down and I thought about it, and it kind of nagged me for a few days, and I just kept telling myself, no, you know, just forget about it, it's just funny. But then I thought about it, we want to have, and we haven't decided completely, I'm still doing some trial and testing with it, but a vague concept we've been working around is wouldn't it be cool if the areas that the players are congregating, and for example say, you know, pooing, is places that can spread disease. So a lot of people hang around Cherno. What if Cherno was a significant vector for disease? So we're still teasing this idea out, but I think this is going to become a big part of DayZ. Not an overt mechanic like being shot or falling off a ladder, but it will be that background tension that I think is going to become that silent antagonist that will push people to group together or just get a really good strategy. And bad food as well is something I've talked about on the forums. Yeah, so don't step in the poo. I'm going to cop a lot of flack for that, I just think. So, new content. This is something we really want to bring with Standalone because it's really important to us that we put enough in the Standalone that we've produced a fair product. So not only do we have to deal with the hacking, the duping, etc., but we need to have enough new in there. It's not a priority, and the reason I say that is because it's a separate kind of little cells that are happening around it. So an example being setting up this little cell to go through and make all the buildings in Chernerus enterable. So they obviously work through that one by one by one. We're not going to delay the Standalone to have that all done, but as they complete buildings, they get rolled out. And that's the approach we're taking with it. So I provided a couple of examples there. Household type weapons is a big focus. You know, we've been looking at things like bow and arrow. That does require a little bit of code work. Crafting equipment. So I use crafting gingerly like I did at Rest because it does have a lot of connotations. We want it to be authentic. So someone just the other day said on the forums, you know, you should be able to splint. In fact, I think Yahtzee put this very eloquently in his review. You know, why the hell can't you make a splint out of wood and bandages? We've also talked about a lot of new animations. I talked with Stefan and Lucas at our company about introducing a whole new animation tree for injured players. So yeah, you might treat your injury, but you actually have to get it properly dealt too, and otherwise you'll be limping along. So those are still ideas we're teasing with at the moment, and they'll just be rolled out in the Standalone as they're done. And the new zombie models is another thing that's already underway. That will be in the Standalone itself. They are kind of a priority now because of the optimization requirements. Chernerus Plus, it's done. We've got new towns, facilities, balancing of water fountains, many more enterable buildings. I'll have some pictures on the Tumblr very soon of some of those, maybe even a video or a little interview with some of our artists that will do a little bit of an explore of Chernerus Plus. Unfortunately, our two developers of Chernerus Plus are still in prison in Greece. I won't talk any more about that. BI's made statements about that, but Ivan and Maxwell are actually the two guys who did this. So with them being away, it's been very difficult for me to do exports of this, but we're making do as best as we can. New crossbow, which I snuck in the picture before, melee and items, those things have been done as well. Some of those may come out in the mod if we get the community involved in helping to push that out. So vehicle development. I talked a lot about player construction. We have had to scale back our ambitious design requirements for November, December release. And that is so that we can focus the time on providing a polished product. However, vehicles are something that there's a lot of tech already implemented in the mod, and there's a lot more that we can use in the engine. So, and there's a lot we can already do in terms of having sort of this vehicle customization. And I guess to provide a bit of a thought picture, you know, I see it as being, like I said here, so this is a precursor to our more complex player construction. So we want to perfect the simple. We want to have it so that you can go around and scavenge whatever parts you can find on vehicles. Maybe you find an engine in a smaller car or parts for an engine. You can use those, but it'll have a lesser effect, and you combine different parts together to have different effects in different vehicles. We want to really have it so that players can find different parts and create different kinds of vehicles. You know, everyone, you know, the guys at BIS talk a lot about the battle bus. Like, everyone likes the battle bus. So we want to have that kind of ability to authentically create vehicles, and I think that's going to provide us our precursor. And it's something that we can achievably do in the short term before we get player construction done completely. I guess that's suitably vague, but I think we've kind of reached that point. It's so soon. Maybe, you know, it's a little bit precious of us, but, you know, I want to be the first to implement some of these cool little ideas we've got, and it's not you know, it's only a couple of months away before we've got the standalone. But if you think I'm being too vague, you can call me on it in the Q&A, and you'll watch me squirm and get really uncomfortable. Timetable. So, bugs and happen plus stable build equals our alpha. I think probably every day someone posts on my Twitter, when is the standalone out? It has to be out before the end of the year. Not just because we've committed to it, but in order to achieve what we need to do. It has to be. Like, there's no, we hope it is, or whatever. It has to be out by the end of the year. And it's going to be cheap. We've decided that, you know, we don't need to sell a heap of units in order for us to be okay with where it's going. I think the more units we sell of it, the more ambitious we get, because the project has then better resources. So I like to think we're taking cautious and sensible steps at the moment. I don't really like cautious and sensible. You know, DayZ as a mod wasn't cautious and sensible. But our first few steps have to be there. And if we can achieve that in December, then in January and February we can start to do all the cool stuff. Yeah, move to more ambitious features. Oh, like beating my PowerPoint presentation. Yeah, more content. So after we've, you know, I'm talking about January, February here, I think we'll see a lot more content rolling out. And because of the way our pipeline is set up, we can roll that stuff out really fast. This is a big one. So there's been just really fantastic community engagement, and I think there's a couple of things that really excite me at the moment. One is how the private service, the private hives are maturing as a concept. I'm really hoping that we get this central repository for the mod, and I can get like a Skype group going of some of these awesome people, like I think the Survive DayZ, I just sent the guy and read my contact details. I can go to them and say, here are these assets I'm implementing in the standalone, here is the scripts that are behind it, can you guys figure out how to put that into their mod, and then they can put it in and give it feedback. Maybe you could see that as being lazy, but I don't think I'm so awesome that I can work on the mod and the standalone at the same time. So why don't me and these guys who are doing this awesome work talk together and try and find some kind of synergy. So Matt Lightfoot at the moment, our production guy, is working with these people, and I really hope that very soon we're going to get a central repository that I can upload all the stuff into, and we can start seeing something happen quick. And then people will stop bugging me about patch 1.7.3. Really want to get into supporting events, look at APIs, having community localization, those kinds of things. An example of an event is we're trialing a little bit of support within the mod for the Survivor games that are coming up. And I'm really excited about that. Really excited. I think that's going to be really cool. So there's going to be, if that works out, then that will provide a customized version of DayZ that's highly specialized about providing these kind of events that have a very, like a big, you know, production behind them and are designed for a large amount of viewers and esports and stuff like that. So, I hope I haven't talked too long. It's really hard for me to get a perspective on what people want to know, because I've been living and breathing it, and I have to confess, certainly the last month hasn't been super pleasant, and I think at times, probably the whole time, I wouldn't even call it really fun. There's a lot of pressure that comes through with it. You spend a lot of time, you think, man, when we release the standalone, is anybody going to buy it? And then other times I think, yeah, heaps of people will. And I think the most important thing, and where I've reached at this point, is that we just have to make the game. That's the important thing. And if we screw this up, we've got no one to blame but us, because we have the support from, like, you know, from Valve, we have the support from, you know, people like CCP and, you know, KSP, and all these people are supporting us, and we've had tremendous community support. So, you know, I included Yahtzee's quote there. I really like that. You know, DayZ at best unreasonably crude. That should be the box art, really, right there. And hopefully the standalone will live up to that expectation. So, you know, I guess we'll end my little verbal diarrhea there and move on to the Q&A. But yeah, thanks very much for listening and your great support.
Right, Right. Who are we looking to for the first question? I'm looking for our volunteers. Here we go. Come on. Hands up, guys, if you want to ask a question. One over here, perhaps.
Valve, did you enjoy working with them?
Say again?
Working with Valve, did you enjoy it?
Working with, sorry?
Valve.
Valve.
Oh, Valve. Yeah, like when I was at PAX, I got to talk to Chet, and that was like a real highlight. Like I hope to get a chance to talk to him here. They've just been really supportive, just incredibly supportive. Really, it's actually quite humbling, you know. And chatting to Notch as well. Just everyone, and I know a lot of people have said, you know, travelling around, I should have stayed at home and worked on the mod, but I think this being in the standalone, and maybe there's some truth to that, I don't know, we'll see once all this is up, but I think there's huge value in that support, and it's really allowed me to focus on the vision that we had at the start, and they've kind of allowed me to cut through a lot of my self-doubt and things like that and say, no, we're going to stick to that original vision and not get worried that what we produce, you know, less people will play it. If that's the case, well, you know, we stuck to the vision, and that's what we set out to do. So yeah, they're awesome, and yeah, I think everybody, you know, knows that.
Cool. Heading here next. Let's go.
Playing a large group of players, there's always a question that comes up through all of us is when we're in vehicles, like for instance when we found another group of people with vehicles, and we get into a nice little car chase, and the only time it really ends is when someone screws up, crashes into a tree or a blockade. But in the standalone, are you looking to implement shooting from vehicles, like you're a driver sticking a pistol out the window or having a friend going through like a sunroof? Are you thinking of implementing things like that?
Well, I know with Arma 2 there has been some community-made mods, and this is one of the, I think the awesome thing about Arma 2 is it has all these fantastic mods, of which DayZ is just a small part. One of them was shooting from vehicles. There are some real technical issues with it, and I can't remember whether it was ever on the Arma 3 list. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at the press releases and that, but it's not on the list of things at the moment. I think we want to look at vehicles a lot. It will require some code time to do it. It's definitely not on the list of things for the initial release. We just have to be realistic. Like the hacking and the duping, if we don't fix that, it doesn't matter how much awesome stuff we put in, you know, we're just not going to get there. I'd like to think that that would be something that we would look at, you know, once we've fixed those basic problems, because I see vehicles, at least until we get this Uber player construction that I really want to do done, I think vehicles are going to be the end game content. So yeah, like you say, until we get that in, they're really not going to be, you know, the best thing that we want.
There's a question in the back there in the centre.
With the standalone version, can we expect support for alternate maps like Lingua Island, etc.?
Yeah, well, the community made DayZ. It was never advertised. It wasn't marketed. So we have to keep that alive. What we need to do is figure out a process to manage this. DayZ is the accidental project. You know, there's been no planning. For a lot of times, the only vision is really what I kind of wanted to achieve with the mod, which was really just a game I wanted to play. And that's the idea behind trying to get this community involvement, some kind of open forum for the mod. And if we can get that working, then we have a way to make that work for the standalone. Because we do need structure to how mods and community content appears in DayZ standalone. Because without that structure, hacking is a real problem. I think this is a problem and an outcome that is going to take maybe 6 months to get there. But I would like to see community-made content supported and developed and released. Like, why not? I guess you could argue that robs us of being able to pump out a DLC map, but I think at the same time it strengthens our product. So we're trying to just experiment with this and see how it goes. So my answer is yes, like we want to see that kind of stuff come in, but we need to figure out how to put it in. You know, what maps do we select? And you know, I think EgoSoft are an example. You know, with X3, they did some really awesome content, community content bundles, so maybe we could take a leaf out of their book. I hope that answers the question.
Next question is over here on the left, I think.
Do you think we'll ever see a console release for DayZ?
I think that really depends on numbers. You know, you hear people say, you know, we do it on consoles, and next minute there's headlines, DayZ appearing on 360, and then there's people messaging me on LinkedIn saying, you know, when is it coming out on the 360? I think anybody would consider releasing a PC game on the 360 if they get enough sales. I mean, why wouldn't you? You know, like, unless you just have something seriously wrong with it. So I think that comes down to how many sales do we make to make it viable, and that would be how successful have we been. We could really screw this up. Like, there is real danger of that, I think. Real danger of that. And I think we would need to do that will be represented in how supported this is by the community. I think that the community won't support this unless we do it justice. And if we support it and it's done properly and the design is solidified, then we can look at console versions. You know, I think it's a natural progression. But we wouldn't do it until the PC has done the creativity, the exploration. Once it's done that, it's just a natural platform for it. Hopefully, the future consoles will provide that platform. But I don't have a crystal ball or a direct line to Sony and Microsoft, isn't it?
Nor have I. Who's next then? Where are we going? Okay, in the middle here. You wouldn't mind standing up when you ask a question, just because it's easier for us to spot you in the dark. Thank you.
How do you feel about, after your release, how do you feel about clone games, namely DayZ, that have come out? What are you looking to combat there? What they've sort of, they're sort of copying you in a sense, and they're sort of, coming out with a beta like before your release. How do you feel about it?
I knew someone was going to ask that. Even my mum asked me that question. Yeah, I guess I'd like to use a kind of a reply that I used in the forum. So, obviously you feel lots of things, and a lot of your feelings aren't legitimate. Like, I feel like eating ice cream all the time, right? Doesn't mean that I'm going to eat ice cream all the time. So, maybe it's natural to get upset, jealous, scared, those kinds of things. I definitely think all of those things. Like, maybe they will make a better game. I don't know. Maybe what they're doing is, not cool to me or whatever. But at the end of the day, the way I look at it is I think about it and I think, what are my options? What could I do? I could stand up here and be very critical of anyone who does a clone copy of the game. What would that actually achieve other than making me look like a dick? It's not going to result in a better game. Should I sue everyone who even mentions something to do with zombie, horror? Will that make a better game? And the whole premise of DayZ and the whole premise of our development is we're going to make an awesome game. That's what we're selling. We're saying we're going to make an awesome game, we're going to price it low, and lots of people are going to play it. I think if we compromise on that, then we're screwed. So it's kind of a bit late in me. I know I've kind of went around that, but I guess what I'm saying is what I feel isn't important. And it's like that with a lot of decisions, and I don't know, I think maybe that's what leadership is saying my feelings aren't important here because my feelings are often selfish. And I look at this, okay, so there are a lot of other really interesting, cool projects out there, like the Dead Linger and that. How do you think they feel? Like, I think they probably feel a bit shitty, too. So I think that we have, I just have to be realistic about it and say, the responsibility is on me to make a good game. And that's just life. It's just reality.
Okay, we're going to the back of the room now, I think. Yeah.
How are you going to stop people from all that for it?
Ooh, yeah. I think that it's a difficult problem to deal with. I don't know, a lot of people say, this MMO and that MMO solved it. I think that the solution that we've been looking at implementing in the mod is what we'll go with initially, which is the logging, and then you have kind of a central reputation, because we can tell how you disconnect, and it is something that we've been looking at as part of the exploits. It's a little bit less of a priority than the hacking. Like, I think if we don't solve the hacking, we're in really deep water, because hacking destroys your player experience. But someone old F4ing, they're not killing you. So I think that's kind of that, it's in that bug and exploit that we're going to deal with. I think the initial approach is that we log it, so we can tell whether you disconnect cleanly. If you don't disconnect cleanly, your character sits down for 5 seconds or whatever we can afford to do. And then we'll just see if that works. If it doesn't work, then we need to get our awesome programmers into it and come up with a better solution.
Okay, there's a question on the right-hand side of the room here.
Yeah. You've been fairly outspoken in the past with regards to private hires, especially before the standalone announcement about how you didn't really want people doing their kind of own stuff because you thought it kind of messed with what you're doing. Now that you've got that standalone product, you've kind of relaxed your kind of feelings on this. How forgiving has the community been in your kind of turnabout with regards to what they do on their own and stuff?
That's a really good question, and I'm actually, I think not enough people have really asked me that, I think, because I think there's a lot of things that I've done with the standalone that are maybe questionable decisions, right? And I think that's a natural part of any project. Like, I've been really passionate about the project, and I like to think that I did whatever it took to see the project survive. And sometimes that meant being really ruthless. And I think that's part of being a project leader of any project. It doesn't matter whether you're a platoon commander leading your platoon into battle, or you're a police officer rescuing people, or you're making a game. If you're passionate about it, you do whatever it takes and step on whatever you need to. So I did a lot of learning through a lot of these processes. Got pretty stressed, maybe dealt with some things like my trolling to hackers and some things wrongly. I like to think that I've admitted up where I've maybe improved things, but I think my heart's always been in the right place, and I think the majority of people accept that. This development is about me being able to develop DayZ as a human being, and I think to present the image of a human being means that I have to be honest about the mistakes and successes, and also accept that I'm going to fail sometimes. And I think that some parts of DayZ Standalone will be little failures, and it's about correcting them. So I think they've been forgiving, and I think that hopefully not only I've learned some lessons from that, but other people. So yeah, I've opened things up more. We achieved what we needed to. That was why I was being such a stickler about it, because the message that DayZ was sending, in my opinion, needed to be very loud and clear as to the reason that DayZ was successful. Because I love multiplayer games, and I wanted to see DayZ has no story and all that sort of stuff. I wanted that to be the resounding message.
Okay, there's a question at the back in the middle.
Yeah. Hi. As well as new zombie models, have you got plans for new player models, player customization and personalization and weapon customization and things like that as well?
Wow, this guy's not planted, okay? Like I actually, you're right. I think I meant to have a slide on that, but I didn't put it in. This is something that requires a bit of tech to do, but one of my big dreams, and I've said it before, is around player clothing. I don't want player clothing to be about vanity. This is the apocalypse, so your clothing is practical. The majority of civilian clothing that you find around in normal life is very brightly coloured, particularly jackets and that, because you don't want to get hit by cars or hit on your bike. But obviously that doesn't help you when you're trying to hide. So I really want to have this tension in the game where you find this jacket and you're like, man, I really need this jacket because it's pouring with rain and I don't want my character to get sick because I'm going to get the flu and I'm going to cough and then I'm going to infect my buddies and they're going to kill me and all that sort of stuff. So then you have this tension, you're like, oh man, there's this brightly coloured jacket. Oh, I really want to find a camo jacket. So that's what I want to do, but that does require a that's not even the right word, a radical departure from the existing way Arma 2 does stuff. Talked about it with the programmers, it's not something we've started yet, but that's very high on my things I want to do as a designer. I want to have it so that you find these clothes, and the clothes are a big part of it. Like I've been playing a lot of Jagger Lines Back in Action for some inspiration, and Jagger Lines 2, and XCOM, and all my favourite games, that deal with equipment and things like that. I really want to pick out some of those elements, the elements that I like, and have those in DayZ. But as to how those are going to be implemented, I've done a full design, but I'm going to be suitably vague because I want to surprise you guys with something in December, so we'll see.
To the right hand side of the room there.
How do you plan on handling servers and stuff with the Standalone, and do you plan on giving any support to server admins for things like hacking and stuff? It's always quite frustrating as an admin myself when you see a hacker but you can't do anything about it because it's going to be official. Do you plan on giving any support for the Standalone?
Yeah, that's another really good question. Like, I think that there's been two groups of people in DayZ as a project that have been used and abused. The runner-up for most used and abused would be the DayZ support team. So you have guys like Ander, like Viper, Tonic, who some people will know very early on and things. These are people who dedicated tremendous amounts of time for virtually no reward, huge amounts. And then the winner of most used and abused would be the server hosts, the people who are renting servers. Renting servers for an alpha mod that changes at one random Kiwi's whim. And so they need some love. They need some love in Standalone. We're working with some of the bigger hosting providers to see if we can do this better. And that's really, I'd maybe even use the word travesty at times with how we've dealt with them, or how I've dealt with them. Again, I think my heart was in the right place. I did what I needed to try and keep the mod alive. Like, we had 1.3 million players. Like, at times it was just like, and nobody's allowed to remix that on the internet. But, so yeah, I guess all I can say is that we're going to try and really focus on that. One of the programmers we have, Bebel, is one of our multiplayer gurus programmers at BIS, and he was a lot of the magic, along with Andra and Yurka, behind the 1.60 patch of Arma 2. So working with these guys, I think we're going to be able to provide a lot more love. I guess to get us specific about it, the way I see it working is we need that structure. So we need to come up with some defined game modes of DayZ that have some set parameters. An example being a hardcore mode. We work with server hosters and we come up with a definition of hardcore mode, and then we implement that as rules. Maybe we have a free-for-all mode where server owners can select their things, but we need to provide some kind of standardized default so that when you play on a hardcore server, your character will be able to live on any hardcore server. But if you join a 4-hour time cycle server, for example, you will have to make a new character on all the servers that are in that game mode. I hope that kind of makes sense. But yeah, server owners, we will show you some love this time. So
yeah. Cool. There's a question in the centre here, and then could we also do this guy at the front because his arm's been up so long and mine is hurting.
Hi there. I just want to congratulate you on all your work with DayZ, and it's really nice to see your communication with the community that you've got behind you. It's really great to see that. And my question is, a lot of YouTube and live stream and playthroughs and a lot of personal experience with DayZ has been spent in a group. And I was just wondering, in the Standalone and in DayZ mod, I was wondering what's in store in future for whether it's dynamic party systems, or whether it's, like, as you play in a party, you're more attracted to zombies.
Wow.
Any kind of features that you're planning to add?
Well, this has really highlighted how bad I am at preparing PowerPoint presentations, because I've missed all the big questions. Yeah, so I've been playing around with some prototypes of a group system. I was thinking about releasing them in the mod to test it out, but it'll just become too much anarchy. So I think we need to solidify them, and that's why I'm hoping to get this kind of community development team, because maybe I can be a little bit more open with them about testing ideas and testing concepts. You're exactly right. We need to have some kind of mechanic. I'm just really reluctant to do anything because, for example, let's say we have some kind of group spawn mechanic. I just really feel like that breaks the disorientation of dying. I want the disorientation of dying to be even worse. to really have a real sense of permadeath. And so how do we marry that up with group spawn? There was a good thread on Reddit about it, and an even better section in that DayZ suggestion area with some ideas. So I think that's an area that we're going to have to spend more work on. There's no real magic answers there. I think that'll be a long-term thing, but like you say, it's needed.
Okay, we're going to have one at the front here and then two more after that.
You've mentioned before about the possibility of working in some clues into the game as to what actually happened in the world and why it's got to the way it is. I was wondering how far you've got in terms of your thoughts on that, and if we'll ever be able to figure out what actually happened.
Yeah, so I've started having these really super geek conversations with my brother, Dr. Dick. His name's Richard, and he's a doctor, so I call him Dr. Dick. Haha, I get you back. He's my older brother, so I have to make fun of him. I'm really glad that he's on board because we just love geeking out, talking about viruses and things like that, and I think we're going to have something really awesome there. I don't want to shove narrative down players' throats. Like, that's one of the coolest things about it. Like, you go on YouTube and I just wish, we need to have some kind of community portal where we can share all this content because people are coming up with this awesome stuff. We want to have it so people can explore the world. So maybe you can collect like samples from the bodies, and again, whoops, I need to be kind of vague here because we've got some plans around the narrative, but they're going to be around things like the virus. They're going to be the minimum we can, because I would like to see DayZ expand to have some different regions. Like obviously it's very focused on Eastern Europe at the moment. I would love later on down the track to explore what does DayZ look like, the DayZ universe look like in America. What does DayZ look like in New Zealand? Fine in New Zealand, with rainbows and sunshine. Yeah, so we'll skip the DayZ New Zealand and just go straight to DayZ everywhere else. But yeah, so I hope that's kind of answers your question.
What's your take on the imprisonment of those two poor guys in Greece, Martin and Ivan? Has it stalled the development of the standalone game? And are you in touch with the guys in BIS regarding this BS situation?
Oh, I have to think about this one. I'm going to be unusually coy. This is probably the first question ever I've been like, okay, I need to be careful here. Mainly because I obviously don't want to make the situation more difficult than them. So BIS has obviously made the key statements about it, so anything I would say would be from me and not from BIS, so I've added that disclaimer. Ivan and Maxell are big friends of mine. Like Ivan was the first guy I talked to when I was going to come over from New Zealand. Long way to come, and he's just such a cheery, awesome guy. They were the two developers of Tunerist Plus, so unfortunately that means I have to do all the work. Yeah. Oh man, tough question. I like tough questions though. I just want to see them home. That's the important thing to me. And whatever I can do to see them back is important. The one thing that does concern me as well is, people rage and stuff on the forums. I think it's important to keep things in perspective. I started to feel a little bit bad when even myself, you don't want to get angry at Greek people because, I don't think that's very fair. We just want to see them home. That's the most important thing. And when Ivan and Maxell get back, obviously, I'll give them a big thanks for all their support on DayZ, definitely.
Okay, for the last question, I think we're going to the back of the room there.
Aileen, for a lot of people, we can run games like Crisis 2 and Battlefield 3 on max video settings and get 60-70 FPS. On the other hand, for DayZ, for me and a lot of people, on max settings, it's difficult to get even 15-20 FPS. Are you saying you're going to optimise the standalone, or are you going to optimise it to a point where you're going to play it with max video settings up to 60-70 FPS?
Can I geek out of it? Or I can only see the front guys. What if I geek out of it? So, a lot of people will know, a few people will know about armour development. So that in armour you have your models, you have these things called sections, which is the amount of materials you've applied to the model. And our standard model at the moment has 5 of these. And it just means that your graphics processing unit, your GPU, does a lot more work. And when you have 50 zombies, if you've done a run through tunerables, you know, the noob run through tunerables with the flare strapped to your back saying, "Hi guys, come get me." Hi Mark. Yeah, so like, there's a lot going on and it's causing things to really choke. Our new zombie models will have one section. So already just that simple feature changes things a lot. We have a lot of bones. We have bones for the fingers, like right down to like, I think 3 bones for each finger. We don't need that. So obviously soldiers, and that's the amazing, people don't realize this about armor, just how much it actually does and how little DayZ does. Until you've actually played armor through and got on the editor and, you know, had some fun, you don't realize that. So the cool thing about DayZ is it picks a few things that armor does, I believe, incredibly well, and it builds on them. So we're going to pare armor back and say, let's just focus on these things. And that's why zombies are just the super win target to pick for. They're the military term centre of gravity. You know, we optimise zombies, that's like a huge chunk of what causes things to choke. You see a lot of people say, I can run normal armor with a totally decent frame rate. I run DayZ, it chokes. Zombies. Zombies, 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 that's why. So, you know, and it's something that we can fix. There's going to be a little bit of a problem with that, is there'll probably be less variety. So, unfortunately, Mythbuster Zombie probably won't be there. So there'll be a bit of sadness about that.
Cool. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you again, Dean. It's been fantastic.